Good morning, all my carnivorous plant fans. Today is repotting day for some of the beasties. As you can see, I have two Venus flytraps here in their own pots. And the reason I'm repotting these guys is just because the soil is really old. Usually you repot at least once a year, but these guys have been in the soil for some time now, about 2.5 years. And you can see that there's some babies that have started here. So I might be splitting them off. But we'll see how it goes. And in this pot here, we have robin. We've got a Cape sundew or octopus plant. And we also have another Venus flytrap in here. So you can see that space is really small. So I need to separate these two guys so that they can grow in the summer. And the third mission is these little babies over here, those baby sundews, that I want to gently coax out and put in their own pots. And as usual, we're using the correct soil. So I have my sundew soil there for the splitting of that. And the rest is all my Venus flytrap soil. This is all coming from Cultivo Carnivores. I don't need to do anything additional to the soil except for adding water. And that's why I like to use it. It's high in nutrients and it's the right combination of soil. I've also got a few pots ready. I will be reusing these, but this is just for in case, because once you start working, it's very difficult to stop and continue with something else. So I like to have all my tools ready. As you can see, my professional potting tools there from the cutlery drawer, my water, specific water. I know it's in a sparkling water bottle. It's not sparkling water. This is RO3 water that I use from Oasis. So everything is ready, and I'm going to start with my Venus flytraps, Argyle and Vecna. So starting off with Argyle, he's going to be a little bit easier because he seems to be all in one clump. So my plan is not to split anything, and I have to be really careful because as you can see, some traps here are open, some are shut, and if/when I set off those traps, they have a limited lifespan. So I want to work as quickly as possible, but still maintaining the structure of his soil. And his roots rather. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of squeeze the pot ever so gently just to loosen up the soil. You can see that it's already starting to give, and obviously I can't just reach in there and yank him out. I'm going to have to coax him out with a tool. So I'm going to try my teaspoon first, going not exactly in line with him, but just kind of away from the edges. And just coax gently. If you feel any roots being impacted, you'll know straight away. You'll feel that sort of crunch of roots. Then you need to stop, take a spoon out, and go again. So for now, I'm just gently going down in a more or less straight motion. I'm not necessarily scooping. As you can see, some of the soil is coming along there because it is quite damp. So I'm going to just scoop the unnecessary soil out. So you just keep doing this. Here's a good example. A real big chunk has just come loose there, if you can see, from the soil. So I'm going to stop the dig from that direction and just change direction because that's because of the moss, because it's made one solid mass. So I'm just going to keep doing that until the point where I can gently coax him out. Now, as you can see from his placement in the pot, this area at the bottom here is really close to the side. So if I scoop in there, the chances are that I'm going to damage traps and leaves. There's a lot of baby traps here, even though he is in dormancy at the moment. He is still growing because of the greenhouse that I have him in. So I'm thinking that my best course of action here is to continue in from this side. As I was removing soil earlier, there was a little bit of give. So I'm just going to capitalize on that, feeling very carefully for any root resistance because I don't want to break any roots unnecessarily. And I'm just following the course. So it does feel like in this area here, he is a little bit stuck still. So there we go. Now we have purchase. I'm just gently coaxing him out. Right, I've traded the teaspoon for a tablespoon because now I have his entire system out. And I'm just going to gently place him on a tray, trying not to upset the root system and also not removing too much of the excess soil around him. Let me just show you quickly what we've got going on here. Right, so you can see there, he's come out quite well. I haven't upset too many of the traps, which is great because I still need to plant, and that's really where the fun starts. But you can see I've got a block almost of soil here. So what I'm going to do is prepare his pot. He's going to go in the same pot that he was, this one here. So I just need to take out that excess soil. All of this soil here is spent, so this I'm just going to chuck in my garden. But I want to get his pot nice and clean and ready and layered with a fresh layer of soil at the bottom. So just to show you quickly how I would remove unnecessary excess, here I'm using my hands and I'm just gently tapping, which encourages those loose clumps of old soil to release. You don't want to create complete bare roots here, in my opinion. So be very sparing. But can you see in there, there's a section where it might have gone a little too far. We're okay because we're not completely exposed. It is still holding its shape. So I'm just going to pull off 1 or 2 more clumps, which will make the replant easier. See how those roots are attached there. So I'm not going to tug. And now I'm just going to lay him gently in this tray and sort out the new one. Okay, Argyle's pot is relatively clean. It doesn't have to be spotless. And I do use tap water to clean these pots out. It's not the end of the world. It's such a little bit of tap water, and I do tend to dry mostly. By the time the other soil and everything is in, you're not going to have minerals enough to kill your plant. So I've got Argyle's pot ready. He's going back in the same home with fresh soil, and I'm not splitting any of the babies off. Argyle is ready there, as are my tools. And what I'm going to do now, because these holes are quite large and the soil is quite fine, so when it's dry, it's going to end up just falling through the bottom. So what I like to do is just prepare a little bit of soil in a tray on the side, put some of this water over, and just create like a bit of a mush that I can put in and start layering from the bottom, because obviously Argyle is not tall enough to go from the bottom of this pot, so I'm going to have to fill with soil probably from about that level over there. So as you can see, I've filled my tray a little bit too much, but it's okay because the soil will compact down. I made a bit of a mess here, but that's why I'm working on top of a tray. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water. It's kind of like when you make pro nutro or any sort of porridge. You want to add just a little bit at a time, just giving it a slight stir like that. I'm going to need much more water, but I just want to create a paste. So I'm going to get on that, and then I'll continue the video once that's done so you can see how it looks. Okay, so this is now the consistency that I'm looking for. So you can see it has a little bit of a squish. There's a bit of water coming out there, but it's basically malleable. And what I want to do is just scoop this from here into the bottom of that pot to the level that I mentioned before. You can use your hands or you can use your spoon. Personally, I like to use the spoon. This kind of soil is not super sticky like mud, so it doesn't make your hands really horribly dirty or anything. But I just try to limit the amount of contact that my skin has with the soil, just in case there are any particles or lotions and things. We don't want those chemicals to get into the soil. So you can see I'm just sort of smashing it down, not completely compact, because you want the plant to be able to breathe and you want the water to be able to move through. And it's at this point now that I think I'm more or less where I need to be. So I'm just going to level it out using my hand. And then I'm going to take Argyle over here, and I'm just going to measure the height. So what I don't want is a massive dome coming over the top like that. I kind of want the soil to be level, or even just ever so slightly under. And if I have a look here at the level of those roots, you can see over there, I possibly need to be a little bit deeper. So in this instance, the one side is the right level and the other side needs to be a little bit deeper. I'm just going to sort of make I don't know if you can see it nicely there, but I'm just changing the levels so that when I put him in, we should get a slightly better result. So this is a little fiddly, and it might take me some time to get to the right point, but I think at this point, this is where I want to be. So now, this is where it gets a little bit more fiddly. I need to fill with the soil. And here I'm going to use dry soil, because if I use wet soil, it's not easy to just use a small spoon, for example, to feed it into these little gaps. I want it to just kind of fall in. So what I'm going to be doing now is very carefully taking dry soil and just using my spoon it out and just drop it into these gaps over here. So this is really tricky, and this is where I'm most likely going to set traps off. We're still looking okay. Most of the traps are open, so I've done well so far, but it's inevitable that I am going to set some of them off. And if you see in this corner here, this trap is now under the level of the holder. So I need to get the soil underneath that and elevate that trap. So this is why I just use a pair of tweezers. They help as pushing tools, for example, sometimes for grabbing, like if I wanted to get rid of these dead leaves over here. But I'm going to do that trimming once he's settled. I'm not going to do that now unless there are ones underneath that I can't get to. So I'm going to start that spooning process now. As you can see, I've spooned some dry soil. Dry is just easier because it's malleable, or not malleable, but it can run. And I wanted to show you, I've filled here from the easiest sections first, but then I've got these massive gaps underneath, and it's going to be really difficult to get in there. Also, you've probably noticed, if you're OCD like I am, that Vecna is not square in the tray. I know, we will fix this. It's not too much of a concern to have him perfectly placed from the very beginning, because this soil has a lot of give. We'll be able to sort of push him gently from the other side when we get that soil in there. So what you can do here to get this soil into the other side is just use your tweezers or another small object just to get it in. Or sometimes you can use the tap method, so just pick it up and tap. Just an example of that there. So as you tap, I can see that soil is starting to move, and it's leveling things out ever so slightly. So now I need to push Vecna, or Argyle, ever so gently in the opposite direction. I'm going to keep this pot angled, and then I'm going to scoop the soil in. So there is this misconception that carnivorous plants are extremely sensitive and fiddly. And for some of them, I suppose that is true. Things like your cobra lily, for example, or your Albany pitcher plant, they can be super, super sensitive. But the one thing that I've learned over these years is that these plants are a lot more resilient than you give them credit for. So like what I'm doing here at the moment, I would never have dreamed of doing that when I first got my plants because it just seemed like I would kill it. But they really do bounce back. And one of the reasons why you replant during a dormant season is because the plant isn't growing at that point. So usually with things like your Venus flytraps, for example, the traps are actually in a sense of dormancy as well, which means that they're not super active traps. So they don't easily get set off, and they're really, really slow. So you can see like there, for example, this little trap, very difficult to see, but I have set him off. It's a baby trap, but he's going to be okay. And I'm just kind of smoothing this down. So now I'm getting to this corner part here with this leaf, and I'm going to need 2 hands here just to kind of coax that up while putting the soil in. So I'm just going to use my left hand with the tweezers. Had to just get oriented there. Just gently moving this trap up. Pop my soil underneath. The trap is already snapped in terms of like gone off, not broken. So it doesn't matter if I touch it at this point because it's already closed. But I just want to get as much soil in there as I can so that I don't have to get in here again with this kind of force. As tough as they are, you don't want unnecessary trauma. Okay. Right, at this point, I use my fingers just to gently push the soil that I've put in place down. Again, you know, compaction is important, but you don't want to compact as though you're on a building site making a foundation. You just want to take up any excess space, like there. My finger has gone really deep in there, so there's more soil that's required. I'm just gently putting it under these traps. This is a very, very sensitive process. Okay. And after compacting like that, you can see on this side as well, there's quite a bit of height between the soil and the base of this fly trap. So I'm going to fill that with soil so it's basically level here. But I'm going to start in this dodgy little corner here because again, I need to lift these traps up. Right, so after one last sort of light smattering of soil, you can see now when I gently push down, it's not really changing its level very much. So that's pretty much where I need to be. I can squeeze one more layer in here, which I think I am going to do, purely because like there in the corner it is a little bit lower, but it's okay. The reason why I don't like a mound of soil is because when the Venus flytraps grow, they tend to push upwards. They take a lot of the soil with them if it's in clumps, so you end up with this kind of dome over the top and your plant almost like exploding out of the tray. And I don't want that. So I have a few little cases here of sand, for example. You can remove that with your tweezers if you want to. This one has gone really well actually, because last time I did this there was a lot more sand on the leaves, but it doesn't matter. If you want to, you can just use a syringe and gently sort of dribble the water over to get the sand off the leaves if it's really, really bad. But generally it's okay. I mean, the sand will just disappear on its own, but you don't want the plant completely covered because these leaves are for photosynthesis, and this is how they survive the winter when they're not actually eating anything. If they don't eat anything, as you can see here, Vecna actually did catch a fly. There's a lot more dead leaves here with Vecna, and that is because he suffered from a pest invasion last summer, and he took really big strain. I'm going to double check him for pests in this period now when I replant him, and there's a possibility that I might actually separate this little plant and this little plant and put them in 2 separate pots, but I'm going to see how that goes, and I'll show you the results at the very, very end. For now, though, Vecna or Argyle is ready to roll, and all I need to do now is put him in his tray, fill that tray with water, and let him absorb that from the bottom up. But because this is absolutely dry soil, I'm actually going to use my syringe just to dampen that, just so that it absorbs better and he doesn't have such a big shock of dry soil, because they don't like dry soil at all. So I'm going to do that now, and then I will start with Vecna. Just a quick demonstration of what I was saying before. So my syringe is full, and I'm just gently beading the water over the top, trying not to get it too much into the traps or the leaves. But again, it's not an issue if you do. They're really not as sensitive as you might think. So I just kind of do that. Repeat in the same area. You can see how long that water takes actually to go through the soil, and that's because the soil is bone dry. And that's another reason why I like to put moisture in the bottom layer, because that's where the roots are going to be touching, so they've immediately got some water, and that section is going to suck up the water very, very well. So the final thing, once he's in his place, because I don't want to carry him now with water in the tray, but I'm just going to put that in the tray to about half full and put him in his sunny position, and then he'll be happy.